Hello and welcome to Elementary STEM with Ms. Crosman. Today's project is called MVP, which stands for Most Valuable Paper. For today's project, you are going to need a couple sheets of paper. One, which will become your most valuable paper. Another one for your tally sheet. A pencil to use for your tally sheet. And some sort of shapes. I like to use these pattern blocks. Now, for today's activity, what you're going to do is cover an entire sheet of paper with as many blocks as you can in a single layer. But you want to make this the most valuable paper possible. So what you're going to do is assign a point value to each of the blocks that you put on. The number of points a block is worth is equal to the number of sides it has. So a circle would only have 1 point because it only has one side. A triangle will have 3 sides, so it's going to be worth 3 points. A square, rhombus, and diamond, and rectangle are all going to be worth 4 points because they each have 4 sides. If you have hexagons, they're going to be worth 6 points, and if you have octagons, they are going to be worth 8 points. Now, when you're all done filling your paper, the next thing you have to do is sort your pieces by how many sides each piece has. So if I used any circles, I would put all of those in one pile. All my triangles are going to go in another pile. All my 4-sided figures are going to go into another pile. Any rectangles, rhombus, trapezoids, squares, any of those are going to, diamonds are all going to go into another pile. And then finally, if I used any of my 6-sided pieces, my hexagons, those are all going to go into the last pile to help me tabulate my total amount so I can figure out how much value my paper had. Now I've sorted my pieces into piles. I have my pile of hexagons, which are my 6-sided figures. I have my pile of triangles, those are my 3-sided figures, and then everything else I used was 4-sided figure. So the next thing I have to do is count up how many I have and add those into my chart that I'm making. So let me show you what that looks like. So here are all my 4-sided figures. I'm going to push those aside for just a minute and bring over my tally sheet. So I used 6 hexagons. So on my tally sheet, where it says 6-sided figures, I'm going to say that I used 6 pieces that were 6 sides each. Then I'm going to count my triangles. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26 triangles. So I'll add that to my chart. I had 0 circles. I have 0 8-sided pieces. So I don't have any octagons in my set. So now I have to count these pieces. But I'm going to come back and do that in just a minute because I dropped one and my dog took off with it. So hang on. All right, I'm back from chasing Tessa around the yard. We now have 1 fewer square in the set of pattern blocks than we did when we started, but I'm going to count that as one of the ones that I did use. Now, one of my hints when you have a big number of things to count, like I had a lot of 4-sided figures, is to count them and stack them into groups of 5s, and then I can go back through and count by 5s and see how many that I have. So let's take a look. These are all my stacks of 5s. So going through, I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. And this is only a stack of 4 because I'm counting in that one of the ones that Tessa chewed up. So I have 70 pieces with 4 sides. Now it's time to do the math and figure out my grand tally of points. So right now what I've got on my chart is that I have 0 1-sided pieces. I have 26 of the 3-sided pieces, 70 of the 4-sided pieces, and 6 of the 6-sided pieces. Now for some of these, if I know how to do the multiplication, I can go right ahead and do that because I know that 1 times 0 is going to be 0. A group of 0 Doesn't matter how big your group is, you still have 0. So I have 0 of my one-sided pieces, and I have 0 of my 8-sided pieces. Then I'm going to look and see if there's any other math I can do in my head. I know 6 times 6 is 36, so I'm going to write that one down. Now, you probably don't know what 4 times 70 is or what 3 times 26 is. So this is when you can get out a calculator and multiply and do 3 times 26 and come up with your tally. And then we're going to add up all these numbers in this column to come up with our total point score. So I'm going to come back after I've had a chance to multiply these and let you know what I have. To multiply and check my answers. With the calculator, what I came up with was 3 times 26 is 78. 4 times 70 is 280, and then I'm going to add that to my 36, and I came up with a grand total of 394. Now this may not be the best possible answer. You may be looking at this and saying there's different ways you would have done this and different strategies you would have used to create more points, and I didn't want to give that away, so I did this using absolutely no strategy whatsoever. But if you use some strategies and think about how you could increase the number of blocks that you can fit on your paper, you will come up with a bigger number than 394. So have fun with this one. I hope you get a very high score for your most valuable paper. Now, if you are a teacher thinking of ways to use this in your classroom, there are ways you can differentiate or extend this lesson. You can have younger students count the total number of shapes on their paper and strategize about how to fit more blocks onto their paper rather than use a point system based on the number of sides a shape has. That eliminates them having to multiply. You can have students graph how many of each shape or color that they used. You can make the assignment seasonal by having a shape drawn on the paper, such as a pumpkin, apple, heart, flag, and they have to fit the pieces inside that shape just to make it a seasonal challenge. Or you can have students demonstrate how many ways they can make a hexagon using different shapes and calculate how many points each is worth before starting, or do this activity twice and have them do that exercise in between the two activities.